another one of these girls and stuff that are out there. That's, I mean, don't give it to the sense that these girls can't drive, because I'll tell you what, they're driving the wheels off them and beating these boys and making them go back and do their homework every single day, because you're gonna have to. They go do their homework, and they do it, one, to beat you, but number one, to prove that they can beat you.
And we've seen it with Lindsey Barney, and now we're starting to see it a little bit with Casey Starr as well, another upcoming female driver that's proven herself behind the wheel more than once. I mean, those are good race car drivers. But amazing that you guys drew that many cars at the Deming area.
It's not.
Well, it's not because
we're
honestly
we're the fastest quarter mile track in the West.
Well, and Sunset Speedway for micros, I mean, you can't find a better in the Northwest. It's the best. I mean, hands down, the best racetrack for the micro sprints. I mean, perfect size, a lot of speed, 13-second laps. Where are you going to go see that with these micros? I mean, equipment.
If I wanted to stay with some people, I mean, that was a cool deal to go up there, or to be able to be asked, by a lot of these drivers to come up there and represent Sunset. But the problem is that they run a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? Or maybe it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But of course, I got to be back down at Sunset on Saturday, so I declined. I said I appreciate that.
That's a lot of travel.
That is a lot of travel. That means quite a ways up there. But into the restricted 600 restricted A main. Man, this is another crazy race. Open green flag, both 22D of Dakota Drake and the 11C of Colin McKay would tangle coming out of turn 2. Both of them would hit the backstretch wall. Okay? McKay would be actually towed off, had some front end damage, but this is the kicker, is that Dakota Drake had literally a front wing bracket and her front wing and stuff was just destroyed and was bent, was hanging on by 2 struts on the right-hand side. You would think, watching sprint cars, watching these guys, they use their wings and stuff are meant there for a purpose, downforce on the front end. You think it would have stopped her? No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Hammer down.
This girl, she drove the wheels off of it. Colby Thornhill, I mean, he started 8th, and he would grab the top groove and run into 1 and 2, literally passing 5 cars to get to 3rd. Once he actually got up to Dakota, with 5 laps to go, caution came out. That's when Thornhill, had his issue and everything else, and gave basically the lead back to Dakota. But she took it off like she's been doing it for 20 years. She was very, very fast. And to interview her in Victory Lane, later on that evening, she was just grinned. I mean, she is the cutest little girl, and very, very proud. And I asked her, I said, well, what about, how did you go into this night? She says she just went in as hard as she could. And I said, well, what was your goal for winning? And she goes, to beat all these boys, basically. So
mission accomplished.
And that's it. She has no fear. She don't care if you're a boy or a girl, whatever. She's out there. You're a racer. You're a racer.
You're a number on a wing.
That's it. Bridgeport Logistics Street Stocks. Dude, this was
my favorite class of Sunset.
So you want to talk about a Cinderella story? This, the 18, the Roger Hubbard, would lead the opening green flag. He would battle bumper to bumper with Stefan Strawn. Brian Roden would be in the 14. Brian the Rat Roden,
very fast,
would take the top spot. The racing really got heated up though when Arnie Case and Justin Case started coming through the field.
Father-son duo.
Now these 2 guys were very, very, very fast. Arnie was in and out of traffic, very clean. On a restart, coming down the backstretch, going into turn 3, spun out. Had to go to the back. Well, prior to that, they had a little melee, a little bundle up under a caution, and unknowns to anybody and unknowns to Justin Case was that he had a broken right front suspension. He would go into turn 3 in the next lap and would push all the way up to the wall, and that would end his night. Arnie, bad luck would hit. He didn't make it up any further and stuff. He made it up in the top 5. After the restart, Case of spin out. Knock would be then involved with a late race wreck, but Hubbard would lead flag to flag to take home the victory over Roden.
That's a big win for him.
That was huge for him. He was, by far was, very, very impressed, was very, ecstatic, I guess, would be the deal. Northwoods Extreme late models. We all know that these guys, every time they come to the track, the fans, just with like the Budweiser IMC Modifieds, the fans absolutely love them. And because they're loud, they're wide,
they're
big, they're fast. Last time the late models were at Sunset were, of course, on April 30th. We only had a select few, but we had them. And just like that, the fans and stuff, we had 35 laps for the main event.
Now, your late model field at this show, now, because there was no other late models running any other place, you guys had a stacked field down there. The car count was right around 18 for the weekend.
I believe it was 22.
Right around 18, 22,
yeah.
But, man, there was some quality cars at that show.
Well, we had some of the top drivers, of course. You had Colin Weinberg, you had Joey Tanner, Devin Davenport, Jason Johnson, Sonny Modoff that we'll get into, a little bit later.
Was Steve Moore there?
Steve Moore was there with his car. Wasn't too happy the second night. We'll get into that too. But was very, very, very strong. Steve Moore. He's strong in anything he gets into.
He is.
He's another one of these drivers that literally will drive the wheels off of it to go up front. But we all know fast qualifier Joey Tanner. He would take the lead with 5 laps and would literally have, after 5 laps, a full straightaway over everybody. Now, mind you, this was $1,000 to win both nights. Okay, so $1,000, to a lot of these drivers is a lot of money.
It's good money.
To anybody, that's a lot of money. Would lead Doug Davenport over the rest of the field. With 5 laps to go, race caution would come out, of course. And 2 cars, Jimmy Schramm in the 22 and Mr. Colin Weinberger in the Superman car would get into it.
I know. I heard something about this. I heard that there was a little bump and grind.
There was a little bit of dilemma.
Didn't sound like it was a hardcore racing accident, but just kind of,
I got to be fair. And what I mean about fair is I'm going to go back to a videotape. And it clearly does show, and this is not trying to be biased to one driver or to another driver. When they went into turn 1, Colin had the numbers cleared on his car.
Then the late model feature.
Model feature.
Colin's racing with Jimmy.
Correct.
Okay.
So the 22S in the Superman car, Colin Weinberger, Jimmy Schramm, and Colin went into turn 1 on a restart. Colin was on the high side. Jimmy was on the bottom. I don't know if Jimmy just went in just a little bit too hard and the car pushed, but it did get into the left rear quarter panel of Colin's car. Colin would get loose in front of Jimmy, and Jimmy basically, nobody had nowhere to go. You had the whole field right behind you and everything else, and they would both tangle. Colin's left front would be up on top of Jimmy's right front. It would tear some suspension off, and they would end up basically, stuck over there in turn 2 wall. Colin would get loose. They had to tow Jimmy's car off, and then Colin, of course, would regroup the field. But it did give some significant damage to Schramm's car. The hub and the lower control arm, some body work, of course. That's a given. But they, they put it all back together. They, with some parts and pieces and stuff from other racers, they did what they could. Weinberger would be able to restart, but Schramm, like I said, would be, need to be towed off. But Joey Tanner, man, would lead every single lap and would lead this. Had the track covered by half a track, it was 5 seconds between him and the second car.
Wow, that's huge. Now, the Northwest, and I'm talking about when I say the Northwest, I'm talking from Medford all the way up to your track and down to the Bud Nationals. These guys better be aware of that 111 because Joey Tanner has been nothing but fast. Even in the crate car of Walters back in his own car at Willamette the first night in it, fast qualifier in the 13.8 second bracket. I mean, just wicked fast. That is a driver car combination that is a real threat at any track he goes to now. And if I'm a late model driver in the Northwest, I've got to be concerned about that 111 car.
A lot of people were talking about that and talking about how, Joey's had ups and downs, but this year seems to be a huge, huge up. He can't make any mistakes, and when he does, they're big mistakes. But he makes no mistakes.
Well, they're so
This
big
year,
because he's so fast.
and then that's the thing
that's
too.
the thing about it.
And you look at Colin too. They've been to 5 different tracks and have won 5 different times. It's either been in the modified or the late model.
Right.
There has always been a victory for the Weinbarger crew. I mean, those guys and stuff are literally on top of their game too. I mean, they've done their homework just like Joey has. And I mean that's another thing. We're actually going to be doing a story here in a couple weeks on the Weinbarger Racing crew. Just to recap, a lot of people and stuff, have asked to have a little bit of bio and story and stuff on them. So they happen to email us and say, hey, look, man, can you do a story on us? I said, absolutely.
Well, that's a family
man.
that lives to.
And both nights and stuff were very, very dry slick. I mean, it was a very, very slick track. And talking to Colin on the second day and asked him, what was his demeanor? I mean, what did he think about the track? And he says, man, it was hard to pass. He said it was very slick. He says it was very racy. You actually had to race the surface. Same thing. I talked to Steve Moore, during our, walkthrough of the pits and stuff. Then, the next day, and he says, man, you just got to get a little bit faster. But he says he loves the way the track felt and the way his car felt.
Teammates, Steve Moore, Joey Tanner, teammates, Steve Moore making the switch to the X Factor chassis.
Right.
Kind of getting some notes from Joey, and Steve's no slouch when it comes to race car setup. He understands it. Joey in that X Factor, he's got things figured out. If he gets Steve up to where he's at, you watch out for that 111, that 21 team. Those guys are, and they communicate a lot. You watch those guys in the pit area. A lot of communication between the two. I mean, they're open about sharing notes, and when Steve gets that 21 car figure out, another guy you're going to have to watch out. It's a quality driver.
Well, I talked to him and I asked him, I said, hey, I mean, how many times have you been in this new car? He said he'd only been in the new car twice. He raced, a few weeks back in Sonny Modov's car. And, of course, we all know that he was extremely, extremely fast in that car. I finished second behind Jerry Schramm. But I mean, he's always fast in everything he gets into. Jerry Schramm actually finished third. Jason Johnson was fourth. Doug Davenport fifth. Rounding out the top 6 was Dave Walters. Colin, of course, seventh. Sonny Modov, 8th. Jimmy Schramm was 9th. Celeste Hardesty was 10th. John Gamble, and then Shane Jordan. Shane Jordan, that's another young and up-and-comer, young man that, has got in the late model series. Works basically like 90 hours a week. He works for the railroad, and he drives trains. I don't know. what was it, 3 weeks ago at Willamette Speedway. We saw both these guys duel it out in the modifieds. Just, I mean,
race of the year to this point. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, these two guys racing together, they never touch, but they're racing inches apart, and they're taking each other's line. They're slide jobbing each other.